Now on that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other about all these things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself came near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What are you discussing with each other while you walk along?" They stood still, looking sad. Then one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answered him, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who does not know the things that have taken place there these days?" He asked them, "What things?" They replied, "The things about Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and leaders handed him over to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Yes, and besides all this, it is now the third day since these things took place. Moreover, some women from our group astounded us. They were at the tomb early this morning, and when they did not find his body there, they came back and told us that they had indeed seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see him." Then he said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have declared. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and then enter into his glory?" Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them the things about himself in all the scriptures. As they came near the village to which they were going, he walked ahead as if he were going on. But they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it is almost evening, and the day is now nearly over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" That same hour they got up and returned to Jerusalem, and they found the 11 and their companions gathered together. They were saying, "The Lord has risen indeed and has appeared to Simon." Then they told what happened on the road and how he had been made known to them in the breaking of the bread. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Well, it is a gift to be back at Wilshire in the South, which is my home, among Baptists who are my heritage. So I feel like I am among family here, and it's with great gratitude that I get to talk to you today about what it means to live with hope in the past tense. At the outset of the pandemic in 2020, I was living in New York City, stranded in my tiny fourth-floor walk-up apartment. Some days felt so disorienting and so bleak and so hopeless that the only thing that I could do was take a walk down the empty city streets in the shadows of skyscrapers. Sometimes I would walk across the West Side Highway and down the Hudson River. Other times I would cut eastward across Manhattan all the way to Alphabet City. But on the worst days, on days when hope felt like nothing more than a distant memory, I walked to nowhere, ambling aimlessly, sometimes for hours, processing the loss, the disappointment, the uncertainty of it all. Many people that I know who live in towns and cities just like Dallas have told me they did the same thing back in those days, except on park trails and paved sidewalks in suburban neighborhoods. These became for them paths of salvation, roads they traveled to process pain, to release anger, to restore their grip on sanity. Well, the pandemic has subsided a bit since 2020, but I still need to take these walks from time to time. I take walks when innocent black men bleed out on pavements and white supremacists march down streets. I take walks when innocent children are murdered in classrooms and gun companies brag about assault rifle sales. I take walks when partisan justices and legislators unravel basic rights and protections, and when I'm confronted with images of stranded refugees, kids in cages. It's getting harder these days to hold on to hope. When we look out at the world and we see hatred, bigotry swirling around us, it's hard not to wonder in times like these if maybe some of our cherished beliefs are, well, obsolete. Where is God in times like these when the world is falling apart? And what does it mean to restore our hope once we've lost it? You know, I think if you ask Luke, the gospel writer, these questions, well, he just might invite you to join him on a little walk down a 7-mile stretch of road between Jerusalem and a place called Emmaus. Today's story is one of 7 post-resurrection narratives in the Gospels, but Luke is the only one to tell this particular tale. 2 travelers walking down the road, down-faced, disappointed, disillusioned, when a mysterious man comes up and asks them why they look so glum. Apparently, this stranger doesn't get out much. So the travelers, they tell him everything they know. In Jerusalem, they say, a rabbi, a prophet named Jesus of Nazareth has been executed unjustly by the religious aristocracy in cahoots with law enforcement. There was a rigged trial, a sentence that didn't nearly fit the crime, and a brutal crucifixion that is so awful that neither of these travelers will talk about it directly. The utter disappointment of it all has convinced them that they need to end their Passover vacation early, and so they take a walk. It's been 3 days since that crucifixion, and the execution is a verifiable fact. Nobody doubts whether Jesus died, but some people are spreading rumors that he's come back to life because someone has said that Jesus has been spotted, and well, the tomb was empty, but who can say for sure? Even those who have claimed to see Jesus have had a difficult time believing their eyes, and the tales they tell sound like campfire ghost stories. A crucified rabbi appears in their midst, says a little something, and then just dissolves into the atmosphere. There's no proof that he's actually come back. And so everybody has to decide for themselves whether they believe it's true or not. You know, if you think about it, we're all really having to wrestle with this same question ourselves. Do we believe that Jesus actually came back to life? We haven't seen him. We haven't even talked to anybody who's seen him. We know that Jesus was crucified, but the resurrection is just a rumor. And when we look around our world today, well, Good Friday feels a lot nearer and truer and more believable than Easter Sunday sometimes. The violence, the death, the loss, they're all verifiable, both then and now. But the possibility of new life, it's only a matter of speculation, both then and now. Now, these travelers, they have surveyed the facts, and they have concluded that Jesus is probably still dead. We know this because they've packed their bags. They're headed for home, grieving and reeling. It's time to take a walk. Now, Luke says that this road from Jerusalem to Emmaus is 7 miles long, which means they have about 2 hours to discuss all the events of the last 3 days. But it doesn't take them long to get to the crux of the matter. We had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. Oh, now hope. Hope is something we could all use a little more of these days, but they didn't say hope, they said hoped. Can you think of a word in the English language that is sadder than the word hope in the past tense? It's amazing how desperate that tiny little 4-letter word becomes when you just hook a D on the end of it. I hoped she would recover. I hoped they'd let me keep my job. I hoped my baby would be healthy. I hoped he would choose to stay, at least for the children. I hoped this wouldn't turn violent. We had hoped, they said. Can you relate? Now, archaeologists have not been able to locate this village called Emmaus, and there's no record of the town in any other reputable historical sources, which is why some scholars have actually called the road to Emmaus the road to nowhere. But I'm less interested in the physical geography of Emmaus than in its spiritual typology. I wonder if Emmaus isn't just another name for any place that you retreat to or return to when your world falls apart, when your faith falls apart. The writer Frederick Buechner puts it this way: Emmaus can be a trip to the movies just for the sake of seeing a movie, or to a cocktail party just for the sake of the cocktails. Emmaus may be buying a new shirt or a new car, or smoking more cigarettes than you really want, or reading a second-rate novel, or even writing one. Emmaus may be going to church on Sunday, because Emmaus is whatever we do or wherever we go to make ourselves forget that the world holds nothing sacred, that even the wisest and bravest and loveliest decay and die. If that's true, then my Emmaus is retail therapy. It's mindless doom scrolling on my iPhone. It's binging Netflix late into the night. It's an intimate encounter with a person who hasn't earned the right to that level of intimacy. It's working every waking hour because I can't seem to separate my identity from my vocation. Emmaus is anywhere we go to get rid of the emotions we don't want to feel or the memories we don't want to remember. Where is God when we are on the road to Emmaus, when we walk this road to nowhere? Where is God when we're living with hope in the past tense? Luke tells us that the stranger on this road isn't actually a stranger at all. It was Jesus himself. And isn't that interesting when you stop to think about it? Jesus is standing right there in front of them having a chit-chat, and these two travelers have no idea. If you look closely at the language, you'll see that the problem is not that the two travelers do not see Jesus, it's that they don't recognize him. Which makes me wonder whether hopelessness might have kind of a blinding effect on us. It makes me wonder whether God is always present on this road called grief, waiting to be identified, waiting to be invited into the conversation, but maybe, just maybe, we can't make out the silhouette of the divine through the foggy lenses of our own disappointment. Perhaps we can become so hyper-focused on our pain that we see God, but we do not recognize God. Maybe the divine is all around us, even in the mess and the madness of this moment, but we're too busy kicking rocks and staring at the ground to recognize God. Well, lucky for all of us, God doesn't stop speaking just because we're not paying attention. The stranger on the road that day hears their complaints and responds with a Bible lesson. Haven't they read the prophets? Have they forgotten the stories that are stacked together through their sacred texts? You know, the stories of our tradition in our text, they're nothing less than reminders that when suffering comes, God doesn't offer us a parachute to escape. God offers us a presence to endure. And this is the promise that Christians hold on to when we succumb to hope in the past tense. Now, as this stranger speaks, a warmth begins to form just behind their sternums, spreading across their chest, and suddenly they wonder if maybe they should transform their past tense hoped back into its present form. It's too early to say. But as they enter Emmaus, they know they'd like to keep the conversation going, and so they ask this strange man to stay a while longer, and he enters their house. He sits at their table, and then he oversteps his bounds. He's a guest, but he takes the place of the host. He snatches that loaf of bread sitting in the middle of the table, and before they can bow their heads and say, "Let's pray," he blesses it, breaks it, and offers it. And suddenly the most marvelous sense of deja vu permeates the room. They've seen this pattern before: taking, blessing, breaking, giving. That was the pattern of their friend. That was the pattern of that rabbi, that prophet who had been crucified, the one who is rumored to be alive again. And in that moment, the travelers do not only see Jesus, they recognize him. With sure hands, Jesus extends the loaf to them, and they are so petrified they can't even reach for it. And then, just like that, he vanishes, and 2 half loaves of bread bounce off the tabletop. And that's the whole story. It's all rather abrupt, really. At the moment, Luke has us on the edge of our seats, and he just decides to roll the credits. There's no tearful, happy ending, no final punchline to leave us laughing, which means we have to decide how this story ends, not just for those travelers, but for us as well. I don't know what your grief looks like right now. I don't know what losses you are mourning. I don't know the depths of your disappointments or the particulars of your doubts. I don't know what you once hoped for or how you lost that hope along the way. But I can't help believing that we all need to hear what Luke is trying to tell us. That we never walk this road of grief alone. That even when we can't seem to find God, that God finds us. That when life feels like nothing but endings, there are new beginnings right around the bend. That the divine is intersecting our world even when it's falling apart. So Wilshire, open your hearts and open your eyes and receive this good news that the Son of God himself is here among us even now, in the friendship of fellow grievers and the hospitality we extend to strangers, in the ancient stories of our sacred texts, in the mysterious sacrament of breaking bread. Take a walk and keep your eyes peeled, and you might just find that a little letter has dropped right off that word, hoped, and has changed everything for you. Amen.